Hi, Misha here, and this isn't a history video. I had the F-51 Mustang and the F-84 Thunderjet and the F-86 Sabre out, going over the history in Korea of these jets. And since each of these is from a different manufacturer, I thought we would kind of just talk a little more informally about the pros and cons to each brand. And just because I also brought out my Messerschmitt ME262, which is from a fourth brand. These are all officially considered Diecast models, and they're all 1/72 scale. Diecast, of course, is meaning that it's primarily metal, but they will use plastic or polymer in areas where needed. Some stuff is just not really possible to form with cast metal. Either you can't get the detail, or if it was made in metal, it'd be too thin, or sometimes it's just a cost factor. The one on the left here is from Oxford Aviation. It's the cheapest of these. These tend to range from about $20 to $25. Then we have the Corgi. And there's a few different Corgis. They're different product lines. Their cheaper one, which is kind of their warbirds, they're actually about $20, $25 as well. Then the next step up, which is this one here, these are in the, $60 range. And then they also have a higher end set that goes anywhere from $80 to $100. Moving over, this is a brand you don't really hear anything much about. This is Skymax, which is meant as an economy version. It's essentially Hobby Master's economy line, but they have not released very many airplanes in the Skymax series, at least not so far. But these are pretty nicely priced, all things considered. They're in the $50 to $60 range, so kind of like the mid-tier Corgi. And then finally, probably the most famous of the makers in this range, Hobby Master. These days, Hobby Masters can range anywhere from $60 up to $100, sometimes even $120, $30, depending on the model. And if you think that's expensive, check out Caliber wings or Century wings. They're even higher. So what do you get? Well, let's go back over here. The Oxford. So it is a 1/72 scale diecast. Reasonably nicely constructed. I will say it does have more noticeable kind of seam lines, a little more flashing involved. Again, still really decent for the money, but like right here, here's a good edge that you can maybe hopefully see. The cockpits on these will not open. They do not have pilot figures inside, nor much in the way of cockpit detail. And they do not come with landing gear. The landing gear is just up in flight mode. Some of the other cheaper ones, for example, Atlas, go the opposite route, and they will have the plane with the landing gear permanently down. So typically with an Oxford, you won't really get any accessories or moving parts. You just get the plane and then a decent little two-piece stand. This one fits on its stand very well, and I do like how they sit on the stand kind of tilted, which means you can get more on a shelf if they're all kind of canted over to the side in a similar fashion. That's nice. But I've had other Oxfords where they don't really peg in well and they kind of wobble. Another thing you don't get with an Oxford, and this is something to really be aware of, since a lot of the planes they do are from World War II and are props, with an Oxford, the prop does not rotate. It's fixed. That might not seem like a big deal, but just keep in mind if your prop doesn't rotate, you have little things sticking out, and if they get dropped on or drop onto something, if they spin, they can kind of spin out of the way, but if no spin, then, yeah, they're breaking. So, kind of makes it a little fragile. Corgi here is a step up. Typically, with this level, the, say, $50 and up ones, you'll get a pilot figure inside, but usually the canopy does not open. That's not to say all of them don't. There are some that do have opening canopies, especially when you get to their higher end ones. Heck, they even have a couple with ladders that retract down. Pretty neat. But this one doesn't. It's just there. As you saw, though, the propellers do spin. These do come with ordnance already glued onto the wings. So you get accessories, but they're already on. Some of the higher end Corgis, the ordnance is removable and adaptable. What am I doing? It's usually nerve-wracking, guys, when I can't see what I'm doing here. Oh, wow. So yeah, you'll get ordnance. Sometimes it'll be part of the plane. Other times you can attach it or move it, configure it. If the wings move or adjust, that'll happen. So these do have moving parts. They do have landing gear, up or down. One thing I like that Corgi does, when they ship you the plane, the landing gear doors, so in the up position, are already installed. You don't have to install them, they're just already on the plane. But if you like, you can take them off and put the gear down. This, for example, also came with movable or, positionable flaps, which is a nice touch. And it came with this stand, which is actually pretty good. The base pegs into a large hole, and then in the plane it sits in a little cradle. And what's nice, this does rotate on the stand, so you can move your plane. And it's kind of sitting on a little rubber gasket that acts as a shock absorber. I actually really like this stand. Now, because of how it bows out, I don't know how much weight it could bear for heavier planes, but, for World War II, kind of smaller things, it's a nice little display stand. And because of how it hooks, it's easy to kind of pick up and move around. Also, most Corgi say they're limited to X number, and you get a certificate saying one of, whatever. So that's nice. Moving on to the Skymax, which I said is basically, I believe it's owned by the same people who own Hobby Master. And it seems to be their slightly more economy line. But there's not many items in it. These do have opening cockpits, like so. But they do not come with a pilot figure. I happen to have a spare one, so I put him in there. So a Hobby Master pilot will fit. But just know if you get one, you'll get the opening cockpit with the little seat in it, but no pilot. Like a Hobby Master, they'll come shipped to you with nothing installed on the bottom, but in the box there will be gear up or gear down. You can peg them in however you wish. They also come with accessories. This one had drop tanks and a couple other small flap options. It did come with 2 little rockets already on the fuselage. They're permanent. And it does come with a much cheaper stand than a Hobby Master. That's why I took it off. It's very narrow on the bottom. Holds together okay, but it's just a very, very lightweight stand. So that's definitely one of the cheaper things that they cheapened out on. Basically that and lack of pilot. Maybe not quite as close attention to detail when it comes to paint jobs, but otherwise it feels very much like a Hobby Master. And speaking of Hobby Master themselves, the usual deal with the Hobby Master, you'll get wings up, the gear up or down. You'll get ordnance as, if it goes with the plane. You get an opening canopy. You'll get a pilot figure. You get a little bit nicer stand. Base is nicer anyway. I have kind of a mixed feeling about the Hobby Master stands themselves. Perhaps you might consider a little better paint job with a little more attention to detail. And maybe a few more ordnance options. And again, this is getting close to one of the higher end premier diecast model makers, but it's probably not the highest end. But it's the pretty much nicest one I own. There's also Air Force One, and I did a video on the Blackbird, the SR-71, but it was so big that I didn't want to put it in the video because it would have eclipsed these others. But I talked quite a bit about them in that. So that's kind of what you get for the price difference. I would say, for an example piece, just sitting on a shelf, an Oxford is fine. But if you're really a hobbyist, and if you like kind of messing with your planes and configuring them, there's no real options here. On the other hand, because of that, they're very simple. They're actually pretty robust just because there's not much to go wrong or break. So simplicity does have its benefits. But I really wish the cockpit opened, and yeah, just a little on the plain side. But what do you expect for 20 bucks? Honestly, Corgi really impressed me. They have some really neat planes, and I think for what you get, for what you pay, it's nice. The paint has a very kind of rough feel to it, very real world. And they have some pretty fine details, some small parts and things. And they feel pretty well built. And again, I really like how the stand moves. I do kind of wish the canopy opened on this one, though. Just, I don't know, because. Other than that, though, I have no real complaints. I think for 50 bucks, I felt like it was well worth it. I picked this one up because not many companies make a Korean-era F-51 setup as a attack bomber from that war would be, so I thought that was neat. I think the Skymax is an excellent value for the same money. Okay, it doesn't have a pilot, but you can get one, put one in, doesn't matter. Comes with the fuel tanks or bombs. It is a shame they don't do more in these, but I think if they did, I would definitely buy them. If you like an F-84, they also do an Avenger. But unfortunately, it's just a small product line. The only real gripe is the stand is super duper cheesy. So, luckily the plane's pretty simple without much to snap off, so even if it falls off its stand, which I have no doubt one day it will, unless it just happens to fall wrong, or I don't see that much really could go too wrong with it, thankfully. And of course, Hobby Master is my go-to. They do a lot of stuff. I can put my planes in landed or in the air mode, canopy open with pilot out, or canopy in with pilot in. I can set it up very simple without any extra ordnance put on, as I have it right here. Or I can go full out and load them up with bombs or missiles, or, you know, if I'm in that mood. So it just kind of is fun to play with them, frankly, and set them up in different ways. And while their stands aren't the best, they're usable, serviceable. So which is for you? It just kind of depends. If you're a serious hobbyist who likes configuring and displaying, I would definitely say these three will all do it. Really, the Corgi and the Hobby Master are almost priced identical. Corgi may be just a hair cheaper, but then again, if you look at things like their Tornado or their Typhoon, they're the same price or more than most Hobby Masters. So, but I was happy to kind of discover Corgi, because there are some planes, especially a lot of the British stuff, that Hobby Master doesn't do. Oh, and Corgi does do an ME262. Which actually they do a couple of versions. They have a one-seater and a two-seater, so I'll show you that in a future video. So I would say if you find a Corgi or a Hobby Master and you like the plane, I don't think you'll be disappointed with either. And if you just want an example piece, another thing, the Oxfords, for their price, they're a good gift price. And they look nice. So if you've got a family member that likes World War II, you know, pick them up in Oxford. You can usually find them on sale for $17, $18 regular price. Like I said, $20, $25, maybe $30 for some other higher end ones. But yeah, that's within gift range, whereas the other ones are probably a little more than you want to spend on a gift. Can't really say much more about the Skymax, because again, there's just not enough in the line to really make it valid, which is a shame, because there are really no other F-84s in the 172 scale diecast. Shame, because it's a neat plane. So that's kind of what you do and don't get with each one. The other manufacturers out there, Air Force One is real similar. You get gear, but you get an opening canopy, but not a removable pilot, for example. The Air Force Ones tend to have a little more metal, but on the other hand, they often have visible screw heads. So, kind of breaks the immersion. You know, everything's a bit of a trade-off. But yeah, that's just kind of my deal. I do the 172 scale because there's a lot of different planes offered in it, but also because they're not huge. They're big enough for detail. They're big enough that human characters have some detail. You can open stuff, close stuff. But they're small enough you can fit multiples on a shelf, and you can fit them in your hand. You get to the 148, the one in, 148, they get a little big for what you are. And if you go down to like the 1-200 or the 1-400 or the 1-500 especially, unless you're using really big planes, they almost look like micro machines to me. Just my thoughts though. But yeah, since I had these out, I thought I would just throw you off. I can't really tell you what's best for you, but this is what works for me. Anywho, if you have any questions, feel free to post them below. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And, let's see. 2 of these came from Pete's Collectibles, who I mention in most of my videos just because I want to. If you go over and use code Misha, M-I-S-H-A, you can get 15% off over at petescollectibles.com. And also either reduced or free shipping. So, yeah, if you'd like to maybe pick up one of these, He has some Corgi. He mostly does the Hobby Master. He had some Oxford, but I think he's kind of sold down, and I don't know if he'll restock on them. That's kind of how these diecast models are. You'll see ones around for a bit, and then they'll disappear, and they may or may not get restocked. It's just, you know, this stuff is all imports, and a lot of it's all kind of limited numbers, especially the Corgi. So, you know, it comes and it goes. I would say if there's a particular edition you like, say, like I got that F51 Mustang, I wanted specifically that scheme, so I grabbed it because I knew they were only going to make about 1,000 worldwide. So once they sell out, those things tend to go on eBay and Amazon, and prices go up for quite a ways. So the best time to buy these is when they're still new to market, and before that happens. You know, wait for a good sale, you know, Memorial Day sale or Labor Day sale, 4th of July, Christmas, New Year, whatever, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, I don't know, National Tree Day, Jean-Luc Picard Day, I don't know. It's storming out, I can't sleep, and I'm tired, so figured I'd do videos. Listen to you guys help me ramble. How about that? Anyway, really do appreciate you tuning in. If you like more history videos, check the playlist. I'm in the middle of doing history of American jets. I've already done Russian and a little bit into the German, Japanese. Gonna do British next after I finish up the Americans, so gotta support our friends across the pond. Alright guys, that's it from me. This is Misha. Catch you very soon next time.